It's Friday, May the 22nd, 2026, Memorial Day weekend, and it's time for The Swamp, where I cover daily updates on the federal machine. If you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe and drop all the comments you want. Every article is linked below in the description, and the highlight segments from tonight's episode will drop tomorrow morning at some point. It's Saturday, so maybe 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock. I'll get them posted as soon as I wake up in the morning. I usually sleep in on the weekend. Anyway, so we're going to start off with Tulsi Gabbard. I am deeply grateful for the trust President Trump placed in me for the opportunity to lead the Office of the Director of National Intelligence for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, I must submit my resignation effective June 30th, 2026. My husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. He faces major challenges in the upcoming weeks and months. At this time, I must step away from public service to be by his side and fully support him through this battle. Very sad news. Hope he pulls through okay. According to Tulsi Gabbard, it's a very rare form, so hopefully they at least have something experimental that they could work with, and hopefully he could get through it okay. And she wrote this letter directed to the president with the Director of National Intelligence letterhead, of course. And she says, "Dear Mr. President, I am deeply grateful for the trust you placed in me and for the opportunity to lead the Office of the Director of National Intelligence for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, I must submit my resignation effective June 30th of this year. My husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. He faces major challenges in the upcoming weeks and months. At this time, I must step away from public service to be by his side and fully support him through this battle. Abraham has been my rock throughout our 11 years of marriage, standing steadfast through my deployment to East Africa on a joint special operations mission, multiple political campaigns, and now my service in this role. His strength and love has sustained me through every challenge. I cannot in good conscience ask him to face this fight alone while I continue in this demanding and time-consuming position. While we have made significant progress at the DNI, advancing unprecedented transparency and restoring integrity to the intelligence community, I recognize there is still important work to be done. I am fully committed to ensuring a smooth and thorough transition over the coming weeks so that you and your team experience no disruption in leadership or momentum. Thank you for your understanding during this deeply personal and difficult time for our family. I will remain forever grateful to you and to the American people for the profound honor of serving our nation as DNI." And signed, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. So once again, thoughts and prayers not only to Tulsi Gabbard and her husband, but for her whole family, because it's not just a struggle that they're both going to endure. It's a family-wide struggle. I mean, a lot of us have gone through periods in our lives where we've had loved ones who were diagnosed with cancer, and it can be pretty awful. And I wish nothing but a speedy recovery. And from Nick Sordar, breaking, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has submitted her resignation effective June 30th. Gabbard reveals her husband has been diagnosed with bone cancer and she's resigning to be by his side. We're praying for you and your husband, Tulsi Gabbard. And you can only imagine what the rest of the mainstream news is going to be taking this bombshell, for lack of a better word, because it is a bombshell. It's very significant news and very sudden, which, a diagnosis of this magnitude would be sudden. I mean, it's not something that you really prepare for, but the left-leaning news, they're at least attempting to spin it in some kind of way. They're not mentioning the whole, her husband being diagnosed. They're just throwing out questions like, what does this mean for the Trump administration? Why is this now the third Trump official, the third cabinet member who happens to be a woman to have resignated or been fired? So they're just despicable, but we'll get to that stuff here in a minute. But first, we'll just take a look at this.
On to this breaking news now. Fox News has just learned Tulsi Gabbard is resigning from her post as Director of National Intelligence. All right, let's get right to David Spunt. He's got the news for us. David?
Well, Sandra, we are told that Tulsi Gabbard is resigning effective June 30th because of her husband's recent diagnosis of an aggressive form of bone cancer. Our thoughts, of course, are with Ms. Gabbard and her family, Director Gabbard and her husband, Abraham. She said that Abraham has been her rock since they've been married, and she submitted her resignation letter to the president and two members of the senior staff, announcing that her last day would be June 30th because of this diagnosis of her husband's bone cancer. Unfortunately, This is something that Gabbard says that she cannot continue to manage doing two jobs at that time. So she will continue serving in the role of the Director of National Intelligence, overseeing the CIA, National Security Council, other agencies, but will leave June 30th because of this tragic news of her husband's bone cancer diagnosis. Sandra and John, as she helps him fight that over the coming months.
Yeah, it's gonna be some big shoes to fill, because she's been a big advocate for full transparency, releasing lots of information to the public, declassifying information and releasing it to the public. Also downsized the department significantly, laying off a lot of the bloat and the bureaucracy, and saving, what was the number she gave? Something like $700 million a year that she is saving the taxpayers because they streamlined. Of course, the mainstream news will say, well, they're just downsizing and they're firing all the scientists and all of the experts that we need the most. But in reality, I would imagine that it's probably running smoother and more efficient than ever. You know, they don't have all these positions where you have to go through this person to go through that person to go through that person to get a hold of this person. You know, just cut through all of that. Just get right down to the core point of the DNI, which Tulsi Gabbard did, at least from what I've read, been pretty well. Of course, the Democrats won't agree with that, because there's nothing that the Trump administration could possibly do that would warrant any good praises or anything of the sort. From Nick Sortor, Justin, President Trump puts out an incredibly supportive statement following Tulsi Gabbard's resignation due to her husband's bone cancer. Tulsi has done an incredible job, and we will miss her. So this is the message on his Truth Social, and because it's a video, I imagine. Okay, so this video marked or timestamped July of 2025. I imagine he's probably just having some kind words for Tulsi Gabbard that he probably said last year.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And
why? They wouldn't extend the same courtesy for you.
I'm very happy I did. But
they made you get your mugshot taken for crying out loud.
After what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly.
Pastime.
So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So,
all right. So in case you didn't already read the message, I will read it, or if you just happen to be listening and not following along visually. On President Trump's Truth Social, he says, unfortunately, after having done a great job, Tulsi Gabbard will be leaving the administration on June 30th. Her wonderful husband, Abraham, has been recently diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer, and she rightfully wants to be with him, bringing him back to good health as they currently fight a tough battle together. I have no doubt he will soon be better than ever. Tulsi has done an incredible job, and we will miss her. Her highly respected Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Aaron Lucas, will serve as Acting Director of National Intelligence, President Donald J. Trump. So I honestly don't know anything about him, and hopefully he's aligned with Tulsi Gabbard on pretty much every issue that she was, had self-aligned with regard to the DNI, and I guess only time will tell. I imagine he'll do a pretty good job. All right, so FBI Director Kash Patel, grateful for Tulsi Gabbard's service to the country. We will be praying for her and Abraham and wishing them all the best as they confront this new health challenge together. And he was just the first post that I came across as a government official who was given his well wishes. And then I came across a ton of others. Pretty much everybody, they're giving their best wishes to Tulsi Gabbard and her husband. And rather than sharing just dozens and dozens, I just grabbed one. All right, so Libs of TikTok, she resigned because her husband has cancer. This is why no one trusts the media. And this is from Forbes. Tulsi Gabbard resigns as Director of National Intelligence after contradicting Trump on Iran war. And this is from Libs of TikTok. They don't have a history of photoshopping and faking things, as far as I understand. So I imagine that probably did come from Forbes. But let's do some fact checking. Let's just take a look and see, as I just did with the magic of the pause button. So going to X search. Just search Forbes, the very top one, 7 hours ago, Forbes. Tulsi Gabbard resigns as Director of National Intelligence after contradicting Trump on Iran war. They didn't fix it. They didn't adjust it. That's not why she's resigning, obviously, because her husband was diagnosed. And they even linked to a full-on article. I can't remember if Forbes paywalls or not. They probably do. I mean, all of these failing publications, they're all paywalling right now because they're desperate for money, which is hilarious because, how the hell are you going to at least give... why would they paywall everything and not even give anybody a shot as far as reading the articles? At least the Daily Wire gave you 5 free articles before they paywalled you, but they don't even give you the courtesy of doing that. But, oh, look at this. Actually, turns out I'm wrong. So... anyway, so it says key facts. Gabbard reportedly informed Trump of her decision Friday, citing her husband's cancer diagnosis. She will remain in her post until the end of June, Fox News reported. And Gabbard is the latest female Trump cabinet member to resign or be fired in recent months, following Attorney General Pam Bondi, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Reymer. And Gabbard told Congress earlier this year Iran had made no efforts to rebuild its nuclear program following last year's strikes in June, contradicting President Donald Trump's primary reason for attacking Iran in February, and she refused to say that Iran posed an imminent threat to the U.S. at the time of the attacks. I honestly can't remember that. I'm not saying they're wrong, and I'm not saying they're right either. So, I mean, I guess just take that for what you will. Especially, it's kind of hard to take them with anything less than a grain of salt. When they have this headline after contradicting Trump on Iran war. That's not why she's resigning at all, Forbes. So it looks like Libs of TikTok was correct. And my bad, Forbes. I thought you paywalled everything, but evidently they don't. And Libs of TikTok. So, okay, this is just a message just stating that Tulsi Gabbard is resigning. So we'll move on to Brent Henderson. Take a look at this. So when Secretary Rubio finds out he's the new Director of National Intelligence after Tulsi Gabbard steps down, which of course he's not. We already found out who's going to be taking her place. Although that's, I don't know. That might be maybe the most memeable political picture that has circulated around in recent weeks, months. Before that, it was the infamous J.D. Vance one. All right, so RNC Research, you are a sick and deranged human being. You should be ashamed. And they're talking about Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff. So he says, my thoughts go out to Tulsi Gabbard and her family as her husband battles this serious health problem. I hope and pray that he makes a speedy and full recovery. And while the circumstances around her departure are deserving of our sympathy, let's be clear. So here's the giant but Tulsi Gabbard's only positive contribution to our nation's national security is her resignation. She politicized intelligence. Oh yeah? She dismantled critical agencies keeping Americans safe. She weaponized the IC to pursue baseless election fraud claims and more. Of course, they don't give any examples. They never give any examples. We must ensure that her tenure, marked by a devotion to the person of the president and not to the security of the country, represents a terrible exception at DNI and not the new normal. And so he obviously got ruthlessly ratioed. Looks like almost 3-1, and got about 3 million views. So there's a lot of people that saw this post. So I think that this warrants maybe going through some of the comments based on what he said. So, Sir Gregor, what an absolute asshole. This woman's husband was just diagnosed with cancer, and you decide that this is the right time for you to air your personal feelings about the executive branch finally operating properly. You are the worst of us, Adam, the very worst. Yeah, because he wanted a position in intelligence. I guess the rumors that he was gunning for the CIA director role. Not if, but when his belief, when Hillary Clinton was going to win in 2016, which obviously we know how that worked out. And Florida MAGA Godzilla 2.0, you couldn't just stop at the first paragraph, could you? This is why we call you Shithead Schiff. There you go, Shithead Schiff, I guess. Mighty Magnet, you can't even get through a post without going political. Your disclaimers mean nothing to us, so just skip them next time and just jump into the political hatred. And you're the last person who should be criticizing anyone for politicized intelligence, you arrogant schmuck, because you wrote the book on it. Now, there's only so far I can go because things tend to get spicy on the X platform, way too spicy for YouTube. So let me just try one more. Says a hapless idiot whose chickens will soon come home to roost. New limited edition Schiff pencil neck eraser head. Sorry, it's not very sharp. In fact, it has no point. Great for removing the truth, rewriting the facts, and drawing false conclusions. Only comes in yellow in respect for Adam's personality. Uh-oh, a yellow belly. All right, and I guess I'll repost it if you want to read more of these comments. I'm sure it gets crazy down in the comments, but I will do just that. And we'll roll on to the next one. From the White House, moving on to the next topic, in fact. Kevin Warsh has been officially sworn in as the chairman of the Federal Reserve by Justice Clarence Thomas at the White House. So there you go. He was sworn in, and he's now the new chair of the Federal Reserve. Eric Daugherty, Justice Thomas, what do you think about the swearing-in ceremony? So he just swore him in at the White House, and a reporter stopped him for like 2 seconds. So we'll get a look at that.
Justice Thomas, what did you think about the swearing-in ceremony?
Huh?
What did you think about the swearing-in ceremony?
Well, he's sworn in.
Well, he's sworn in.
Justice Thomas, what did you think about...
I mean, he's not going to give you any of his personal opinions. I mean, come on. He takes his role as a Supreme Court justice very seriously. I mean, this is Clarence Thomas we're talking about. All right, so Eric Daugherty, just in, President Trump says Kevin Warsh will plummet Fed interest rates, which will help Americans afford houses. Personally, I'm not so sure about that. I don't see that happening. Look, if they drop the interest rates, yes, there will probably be maybe a sizable demand with housing, whether if it's new housing or mid-century or anything in between. But if that happens, if there's any demand in housing anywhere in the country, it's only going to drive prices up because that's what happens in the housing market. But as it stands right now, it's not about the interest rates. It's about the damn price, because the average house is about $400,000 in America. That's just the average. Anyway, I had a rotten head of the Fed. Now I have a great head of the Fed, Kevin Warsh. Housing is all about interest rates. I know more about housing than anybody. Again, I push back. I know interest rates are very important, and anybody who was lucky enough to buy a house in 2020 or perhaps even 2021, you got a hell of a good deal. Maybe not on the bottom line price, but you did on the interest rate. That's for damn sure. But anyway, let's hear what Trump says.
What's going to happen? I had a rotten head of the Fed.
This was earlier today.
And now I have a great head of the Fed today. Kevin Warsh. Kevin was just sworn in today. He's great. He's going to be great. And now Congress is on the cusp of passing the most important piece of housing legislation in a generation. But to be honest with you, housing's all about interest rates. I know more about housing than anybody in history.
Well, you would know better than me, I guess. What do I know?
And they can pass all the bills they want. It's about interest rates. You get the interest rates down, everybody's going to be
Come on,
very,
dude, it's about the
happy.
price.
We're going to get it down very quickly. I support the bill that passed the House this week. Congressman Lawler's help.
Well, and another thing that I don't agree with President Trump on is that he wants to keep the value of houses the same, if not increasing in value, which is god-awful for Gen Z and millennials too, and soon to be Gen Alpha in the coming years. It's just going to be completely unaffordable. Only 15% of Americans can afford the average priced house today. So we're pretty much priced out for generations if this keeps up. And from the White House, now at Rockland Community College in New York, the New York Giants quarterback Jackson Dart introduces President Donald J. Trump because he gave a rally today.
What's up? Yeah. Big Blue Nation, it's a pleasure to be here. I got to start this off with a Go Big Blue. I'd love it if y'all would follow with me. Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue. What an honor, what a privilege it is to be here. And without further ado, I'm grateful, I'm honored, I'm pleasured to introduce the 45th and 47th President of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump. And I'm proud to be an American.
Oh, no, I can't do that. I got copyright struck the last time they played that song. It's really annoying that it actually makes me cut this music out. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to play the song, but we all know what the song is. So he introduces President Trump. The blue, I'm assuming that means the Giants. I don't watch sports, so, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. All right, so the White House, make New York great again, doing everything we can to bring New York back.
From the beginning, this was a symbol of American excellence and American grit, and really the American dream. And New Yorkers are people who built Wall Street into the world's financial capital, who turned Broadway into the heart of American culture and entertainment, who dug the Erie Canal. You know what the Erie Canal is, big stuff. And launched 1,000 innovations that built really the middle class of our country. You really built the country. Unfortunately, in recent years, this state's been held back by bad policies, bad politicians, and foolish radical left idiocy. It's crazy what's going on.
It's only going to get worse.
But under the Trump administration, we're doing everything we can to bring New York back in bigger, better, stronger than ever before.
That's why the federal public education or the federal Department of Education is so important, so they can indoctrinate our children at a young age, and they could grow up to be obedient little leftists. Anyway, so the White House record tax cuts boosting household take-home pay. President Trump is fighting for American workers. We'll have a look at this one. I got a few of these.
Tax cuts are projected to raise incomes for New Yorkers by over $8,000, Mike, on average.
Income's going up.
We're going to boost household take-home pay for you, the people in the room, over $12,000, and protect more than 405,000 New York jobs. And we got to protect the jobs. We can't let that happen. I just say it again and again and again. You can't let these companies go. It's easy to say, oh, we don't like the companies. They're the ones that supply you with the money and the jobs and everything else. You got to cherish those companies. Whether you like them or not, you got to.
Oh, yeah, job security is important. You know, once upon a time, we used to have pensions. People used to be able to retire. You know, it was such a wonderful time back in the day. You know, even though there were problems that happened from decade to decade during the 20th century. Anyway, over 10, President Trump fires up the crowd at his New York rally, telling them they're going to see numbers like you've never seen as recession odds plummet to all-time lows. I saw that a few days ago. I think I shared that here on The Swamp. The crowd loved every minute of it, especially when he torched the Democrats as bullshit artists for blaming him for the affordability crisis just 2 days after returning to office, which, I mean, look, we all lived through the Biden administration. We lived through the COVID era. We know what the hell happened. Now, I'm not going to give Trump an absolute, you know, like squeaky clean record for that either, because he was the president throughout 2020. So he had some mistakes of his own that he handed out, especially with the whatever the stimulus check was. Remember those $1,200 stimulus checks that everybody got? I thought that was insane. And for all the stupid bullshit lockdowns and all that nonsense. All right, so Trump, you're going to see costs go down, but you know, Democrats are the ones that caused all of the costs. Yeah, I totally agree. And I would say most of the reason, not, you know, COVID aside, it's illegal immigration. Tens of millions of people flood into the country. It's simple supply and demand. You know, when you got a steady supply of all of our goods and you have a huge uptick in people flooding into the country, things tend to get more expensive. It's just common sense. All right, so these are all quotes, so we'll just go straight to the video.
You're going to see numbers like you've never seen, both on the upside and also in terms of costs. You're going to see costs go down. But, you know, the Democrats are the ones that caused all the costs. And they were the ones that caused. When I took over, they caused, I mean, the prices were through the roof. I told you before, the inflation was the highest ever.
Yeah, Democrats, they don't lower prices. High. They always raise everything.
And think of it. They'd constantly come out, the cost. They would constantly come out with the word affordability. I said, they're the ones that caused the problem.
That's only for people who are poor enough to be on welfare.
2 days. I mean, they are the greatest bullshit.
They're not talking about the middle class.
I'm in the office 2 days, and the costs have gone through the roof under 4 years of Sleepy Joe or Crooked Joe or both, Biden, right? And I hear these Democrats from all over the place going, affordability. They're the ones that caused it. I didn't cause it. Remember the eggs? My first news conference.
They're still under investigation for that.
2 or 3 days in, they said, what are you going to do? These people, these corrupt press, they're corrupt.
Red lights just turned
off.
They're
corrupt. They know it.
Well, so are the egg companies. They're corrupt, too.
They're totally corrupt.
There wasn't a major supply shortage.
Saying,
there wasn't.
What are you going to do about the cost of eggs? I said, what's the problem with eggs? They say they've gone up 4 times.
Yeah, that avian flu bullshit or whatever.
Right? I just got here. They're the greatest bullshit artists, I'm telling you. They said, Trump has driven up the cost of eggs. I just got here, I'm sorry.
That's deranged politics for you.
And within 3 months, our great Secretary of Agriculture has driven them down to the lowest point they've been in a long time. We've got them all down. Now we'll get our energy down. The only thing that has your prices, look, energy is a big ball game. That's the big one. And we're going to get that down. It'll get down to where it was, maybe even get down lower. But we had it down to a number that was so good they hadn't seen it since my first term, actually. But we terminated the Green New scam, including the so-called efficiency rule on water heaters, stoves, washers, dryers, light bulbs, saving Americans on average $3,250.
Yeah, the 3 primary egg producers, they were screaming about the avian flu. They said the supply was collapsing completely, and therefore our egg prices went up to $10, $12 a carton in some places. And it did eventually turned out that the supply went from 180 million eggs per month, which is around average, down to 160 million eggs per month. That's the farthest it dropped. And that justified them increasing the cost of eggs 4 times over. And there was some avian flu outbreak or whatever, but they didn't drop nearly as much as they claimed. And they are still under investigation. It's been going on for well over a year at this point. But the federal government's investigating them for whatever it is, price gouging, I'm assuming, whatever the technical term is. They're still looking into it, and I'm sure they'll just get a hefty fine. And you know how it goes with corporate America. They'll be fined like $50 million, even though they profited like $300 million during that time period. So, it's like the complete opposite of a slap on the wrist. All right, so Nick Sodor, Sheridan Gorman's father, is absolutely torching Democrats on stage with Trump. And we've got more quotes, don't we? Yep, quotes and quotes and quotes. So we'll hear what he has to say.
My name is Tom Gorman. I'm not a politician. I'm not a public speaker. I'm a father of whose daughter was murdered by an illegal immigrant. I am a husband who had to hold his wife on Mother's Day when she asked the question no mother should ever have to ask. Through tears, Jess looked at Maddie and me and asked, "Am I still the mother of 2? There's no answer big enough for that pain, no words, no comfort, no way to give back what was stolen from our family. All I could do was hold her and tell her the truth. Yes, Jess, you're still the mother of 2, because Sheridan will always be our daughter." No mother should ever have to ask that question, and no father should ever have to answer it. This is what failed policies have done to our family. We did not just lose Sheridan, we lost our peace, we lost our future, we lost the life that we knew. And no family should have to become experts in immigration failures, release policies, warrants, sanctuary laws, enforcement breakdowns, because their daughter was killed by someone who should not have been here and should not be free. Let me be clear about one thing. We support legal immigration. Legal immigration has made America stronger. We all know families, neighbors, coworkers, and friends who have come and done it the right way. Followed the law, they worked hard, built businesses, raised families, and made this country better. That is America at its best. But illegal immigration is different. Criminal illegal immigration is different. Borders matter, laws matter, enforcement matters, and above all, American families matter. We are deeply grateful to President Trump and to Congressman Mike Lawler for comforting our family, saying Sheridan's name, and fighting for policies that put safety of American children and the citizens first. But I do not understand why this is a fight that belongs to only one party. Protecting our people is not politics. It is the first responsibility of government.
Yeah, he's right. Not according to Democrats these days.
So do not just feel sorry for us. Instead, remember Sheridan's name and stand with us. Demand that leaders who enforce our laws, secure our borders, cooperate with law enforcement, and put innocent American families first. Sheridan should have come home, and because she did not, we will spend the rest of our lives fighting so that someone else's daughter can. Parents out there, give your kids a big hug. Tell them how much you love them. Thank you very much.
And the left, they would call him a racist, anti-immigration, a fascist, and all those buzzwords that you can imagine that they would be saying. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of families that are victims of exactly what happened. Victims of a criminal illegal immigrant who shouldn't have been here in the first place that killed their loved one. And I mean, just the other day in the news, what was that, on Monday or Tuesday, there was another Indian truck driver who was here illegally, who crossed over during the Biden administration in California, who killed 2 motorists, 2 innocent Americans on the road because he was driving recklessly, had a CDL even. And he tried to flee on foot on top of it. He tried to run away. And his last name was Singh, I think. So he's the third Indian illegal immigrant with the last name Singh that is killed Americans on the road. 3 separate occasions. Insane. All right, so this is going to be the entirety of the rally that President Trump held. It's about 2 hours in length, and I'll repost that direct link to my profile below in the description, or you could just go to @WhiteHouse. It'll be at the White House, and the timestamp, it was posted at 3:38 p.m. Fighting for American workers in New York. And from ACYN, reporter, are you attending your son's wedding? And this is from yesterday, by the way. So Trump said he'd like me to go. I'm going to try. I said, this is not good timing for me. I have a thing called Iran and other things. He's a person I've known for a long time.
Mr. President, are you attending your son's wedding this weekend, by the way?
He'd like me to go, but it's going to be just a small little private affair, and I'm going to try and make it. I'm in the midst. I said, you know, this is not good timing for me. I have a thing called Iran and other things. That's one I can't win on. If I do attend, I get killed. If I don't attend, I get killed. By the fake news, of course, I'm talking about. No, but he's got a very person who I've known for a long time, and hopefully they're going to have a great marriage.
Mr. President, actually
All right.
add to this, the article.
All right, well, there you have it. And I've got a follow-up to that. So readers out of context, I'm not familiar with this, but the quote in the embedded video is he's got a person I've known for a very long time, refers to his son's fiance rather than his son. Okay. All right, whatever. And this is from President Trump earlier today. While I very much wanted to be with my son, Don Jr., and the newest member of the Trump family, his soon-to-be wife, Bettina, circumstances pertaining to government and my love for the United States of America do not allow me to do so. I feel it is important for me to remain in Washington, D.C. at the White House during this important period of time. Congratulations to Don and Bettina, and maybe it's Bettina, President Donald J. Trump. So I have a feeling, I mean, he didn't say it, but I got a feeling maybe they might end up striking Iran this weekend. So that's a distinct possibility because Iran did hand over what their terms were, at least as far as the Strait of Hormuz goes. I don't know about this whole peace plan overall, but it was what Iran wants as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned. They wanted potentially charge a toll from what I understand. Anyway, U.S. government rejected it completely. So now we're just waiting to see if strikes are going to continue or they're not. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Rapid Response 47, the Pentagon releasing dozens of new videos of unidentified flying objects. So they released the second batch today. Let's have a look.
We're back now with an ABC News exclusive. The Pentagon releasing dozens of new videos of unidentified flying objects, incidents that the government still cannot explain, plus an account of a mysterious sighting near a sensitive U.S. military facility last year. Jay O'Brien is in Washington with the latest. Jay, good morning.
Whit, good morning to you. Much of what you're about to see has never been public before. The Pentagon now releasing another batch of its so-called UFO files after they were declassified by President Trump. And this morning, we got an exclusive first look. This morning, the GMA exclusive, more than 50 videos and other documents detailing strange objects in the sky, many of which the military can't explain, released in the second batch of the Pentagon's so-called UFO files. Inside, never-before-seen video like this from 2024. The Coast Guard picking up this object as it flew near a plane over the southeastern U.S. And this taken by the U.S. military over Syria in 2021, following an unidentified object before it suddenly speeds off. The service member who submitted the video labeling it instant acceleration. Weird, others seen flying in apparent formation. All part of over 200 files released so far detailing what the military officially calls unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, better known as UFOs, long an object of public fascination.
They want to find out about the UFOs. And,
hopefully they release the date stamps that correspond with these videos.
Or related material.
The files made public on order of President Trump, who earlier this month touted complete and maximum transparency, leaving it up to the public to, quote, decide for themselves what the hell is going on. In the newly released records, this video from 2020, taken in an undisclosed area under U.S. Central Command, appearing to show a sphere flying over a population center, the pilot getting a closer look before it eventually flew higher off into the sky. And this account from a senior U.S. intelligence officer just last year, describing seeing two large orbs flare up alongside their helicopter while on a mission, saying they were orange with a white or yellow center and emitted light in all directions. Fighter jets then scrambled to identify the objects, but couldn't, the officer recounts, then writing, the same orbs we had encountered were now chasing the fighters. We were virtually speechless after these observations. After multiple investigations, the government has found no evidence any of these incidents are of an extraterrestrial nature, but military officials admit many remain unresolved and cannot be explained. And inside these files, there were some videos that certainly were not UFOs, like one of the government shooting down what was believed to be a balloon over Lake Huron in 2023. But a lot to go through here, guys.
All right, I'm sure that explains it.
Yeah, one of those spy balloons.
Thank you, Jay.
I don't know, man. It's bizarre. Some of those looked awfully weird. And I don't think that we're being visited by extraterrestrials. Space is way too vast. And our universe is still very young, even though it is almost 14 billion years old. But given the entire lifetime of the universe from the Big Bang all the way until the last star burns out, if you condense that to 100 human year lifespan, exactly 100 years, the universe would only be 10 minutes old today. So still a lot of time for evolution to happen on other planets and so on and so forth. So I don't know, man. Maybe, I guess it's not impossible. You know, there's the planets outnumber stars. They predict that there's over 4 septillion stars, and there could be over 8-9 septillion planets out there. Was that like a number like 40? It's like a 9 or an 8. Yeah, it's an 8 with like 36 zeros after it. So it's an absolutely unfathomable number, more than the number of grains of sand on the Earth. So, all right. So from the Department of War. The Department of War publishes second release of unidentified anomalous phenomena files. Statement attributable to Assistant to the Secretary of War for Public Affairs and Chief Pentagon Spokesman at Sean Parnell, ASW. I don't know why it's not highlighting it or opening it. All right. So today, the Department of War is publishing the second release of declassified and historical unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, files as part of the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters, or PURSUE. The collection continues to be housed on war.gov/UFO, and I'll link that. And additional files will be released on a rolling basis. Since the site's launch on May 8th, 2026, war.gov/UFO has received over 1 billion hits worldwide, highlighting the unprecedented levels of interest in both this topic and the Trump administration's historic transparency effort. The Department of War and our agency partners are actively working on the third release of UAP files, which will be announced in the near future. So they've got another batch. So was it only the 50 videos? Was that all they released, or did they release a whole bunch of documents with that? I mean, they didn't clarify that. But, you know, 50, that's a lot of videos. So that should be plenty for people to go through for a little while at least. The second release of unidentified anomalous phenomena files. And I already linked it, so that'll be in the description. Let's see, where did it go? Yeah, here we go. So the Department of War just released the second tranche of records under PURSUE. The first tranche was released on May 8th. Scroll down to view the second tranche released on May 22nd. I'm not sure where this might end up. Okay, so it just scrolls down. So there you go. You just click on that up at the top of the page, and it'll take you straight down to where today's release of the UFO files are held on war.gov/UFO. And rolling on to Tom Emmer. Despite our historically small margins, House Republicans continue to pass win after win after win for the American people. We'll accept a couple of major ones, but, you know, that's not exactly Tom Emmer's fault. A lot of this stuff is locked up in the Senate. We are getting the work done. It's past time for the Senate to get to work and enact the America First agenda 77 million Americans voted for in 2024, the popular majority.
Votes weren't there. You're talking about the Senate.
That's what I mean.
We get the stuff done over in the House. The Senate,
yeah,
I think 77 million people are frustrated with the Senate's inability to get its work done and to pass the president's agenda that they voted for. Everybody's frustrated with that.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, the House isn't completely squeaky clean either. I mean, they should be doing a lot more than they've been able to do with Ilhan Omar, for example, among, I'm sure, other people. Inspector General Anthony D'Esposito, the vice president, said it best. We're bringing justice to some of America's most vulnerable citizens and justice to the American taxpayer. It's why the White House Fraud Task Force exists. Fraudsters are bank robbers without ski masks. Now we are coming for them hard. The Department of Labor, the Office of the Inspector General, I think, right? Pretty sure. It's just getting started. Vice President J.D. Vance, we're bringing justice to some of America's most vulnerable citizens and justice to the American taxpayer. If you're committing fraud, our task force will find you, we'll come after you, and we will not rest until justice is served.
Just like all of you, I was shocked last December when I watched Nick Shirley's bombshell investigation of migrant fraud in Minnesota, which called attention to the now infamous Quality Learning Center instead of learning and other schemes across that state. This morning, the ringleader of the $250 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme in Minnesota, was sentenced in federal court to over 40 years in
like
prison.
43 years.
Bringing justice to the countless school children and families she had scammed. And on top of that, today, federal law enforcement launched a massive raid in Minneapolis. Across the city,
15?
Agents have arrested 15 people for suspected fraud that amounted to $90 million. This includes two of the largest Medicaid fraud cases in Minnesota history, as well as the largest autism fraud scheme ever charged by the U.S. federal government. With this action, we're bringing justice to some of America's most vulnerable citizens and justice to the American taxpayer. In 2018, Minnesota tried to provide housing services for the homeless. They estimated that the cost of the program would be $2.5 million a year. By 2024, the program had exploded to $104 million annually, and almost all of that, almost all of it, was because of fraud.
Oh yeah, of course.
As a result, the state had to shut down the program
Autism did just
and
blow
can
up out
no
of nowhere.
longer provide those services to Americans in need. So we've got homeless veterans sleeping on the streets because fraudsters got rich. But it's not just the homeless who are the victims of these fraudsters.
Oh, that's the messaging.
The victims in the cases announced by DOJ today also include disabled Americans who rely on community support to live full, independent lives, and citizens for whom defrauding such programs is literally a matter of life and death. In one of the most horrifying cases charged today, a recipient who needed 24-hour care was supposed to be receiving exactly that through a Minnesota Medicaid benefit program. But he received nothing. No care, no services, nothing for months on end. And then he went quiet. For 2 days, a neighbor tried to check on him, knocking on his apartment door. Nothing. Shortly after, he was found dead. One day before this man died, the fraudster in question had tried to bill for the non-existent services, the services that if they had been provided, this man might actually be with us today. To get rich off taxpayers, even at the cost of others' lives, just as that fraudster had for many months before. This kind of behavior is sickening. It's disgusting. It's an affront to all of us as Americans. And today we're saying clearly, no more. Our message is simple. If you are committing fraud, our task force will find you. We'll come after you, and we will not rest until justice is served. Don't defraud the American taxpayer. Don't get rich by trying to steal from them, or we are going to come after you until justice is served. That's our promise, and we're going to stick to it.
Well, and if the Democrats, if they're somehow able to retake the House and the Senate, you know they're going to do anything and everything they possibly can to put a complete stop to this. So that way the fraud can continue, and they'll just simply not talk about it. And when they're pressed by, what few members of the media might press them on it, they'll say, oh yeah, we're still working on it. Yeah, we're getting things done. We'll update you at some point, which they won't, of course. All right, Inspector General Anthony. Okay, so we already read that. And moving on to Benny Johnson, Majority Whip Tom Emmer just exposed Ilhan Omar for being at the center of the Feeding Our Future scandal. The receipts: she sponsored the bill that made it possible. The fraudsters were her own neighbors and constituents. Amy Bach, sentenced to 41 years yesterday, okay, not 43, 41 years, says Omar knew about it. Keith Ellison was working with Somali fraudsters to block investigations in exchange for campaign donations. That sounds full-on criminal. And Tim Waltz let this go on for 7.5 years. She created the fund. Her people stole from it. She knew this isn't incompetence. This is corruption.
Past 8 years in Minnesota, and his has run rampant. Ilhan Omar is at the center of the Feeding Our Future scandal. She not only was the sponsor of the bill that created the fund that they ripped off, these are her neighbors. These are the people she represents. And by the way, the people that she was in communication with. You know that Amy Bach, the head of the Feeding Our Future scandal, was sentenced to 41 years yesterday. She has said that Ilhan Omar was aware.
Right.
And then you look at Keith Ellison. This guy was literally working with Somali fraudsters to frustrate investigations in return for campaign donation. It's been shown, Charlie. And Tim Walz, you can't tell us that he did not know what was going on right under his nose for 7.5 years. I'll tell you what my constituents are asking every day, Charlie. When are these people going to be held accountable? When is somebody going to go to jail for ripping everybody off?
And I know that you'll stay on top.
Yeah, and Fox Ilhan Omar shall probably call Tom Emmer a racist, a xenophobe, a bigot, a white supremacist. You know, like what other buzzwords are there? A misogynist. You know, he's mansplaining too much, manspreading too much. All right, White House task force to eliminate fraud, defending American taxpayers, shutting fake healthcare institutions down, and holding fraudsters accountable. This is from Dr. Oz. COVID convinced a lot of Americans that they could defraud the government, especially in healthcare. Today in Minnesota, we sent a clear message. American taxpayers will be defended. Fake healthcare institutions will be shut down. Fraudsters will be held accountable.
Jake,
on CNN.
I took this job. President offered it to me because he knows I love Medicaid.
See,
it is the ultimate payer of last resort. It helps people with nothing else that can help them. Medicare takes care of our senior citizens in an elegant, beautiful way. It's a crown jewel of our system. We can save these programs. There's about $100 billion of money stolen from them. A lot of this by foreign governments, potentially, definitely foreign, international crime syndicates. So we can get our arms around this. We took our eye off the ball. COVID convinced a lot of people they could defraud the federal government, especially in healthcare, which is probably 50% of the fraud, and get away with it. If we send a clear message, we're not tolerating it anymore, they go away. Look what happened to hospice care in California. And, this is a program where 1/3 of all of the hospice in the country is in LA. 1/3. So we have already gone after 850 of these hospices, stopped paying them. Some have come back.
And there was no pushback when they were shut down either.
The vast majority just
no
ran
phone calls.
away. So we can win this battle.
Why'd you close down my business?
We got to do it together. Part of the reason I came to Minnesota is to send the message to the people here. We care about you. We'll do this together, but it has to be done together in unison.
All right. And he's in CNN, so I don't know why he wouldn't be sitting at the desk with Jake Tapper, but maybe that's one of their satellite offices or whatever. All right. So just the ongoing fraud, keeping it in the news, keeping it in the cycle, trying to keep it as relevant to the American people as possible because, so far the White House Fraud Task Force yesterday said that they believe that they're currently at $250 billion in fraud that they have uncovered so far. And they keep saying they're just getting started. And I tend to believe them because they've gone through a handful of states. We got 50 states to go through. And I would only imagine California is probably approaching $250 billion in fraud just by itself. All right, so Joe Gabriel Simonson, veterans, the sick, and the needy no longer have access to this program in Minnesota because of fraud overlooked by the media and the politicians. From Rapid Response, A. Ferguson with the FTC, and he's the chairman of the FTC. This isn't just about putting bad guys in jail, although that's hugely important. This is about saving these programs. In Minnesota, there's a great example. They had to shut down the Housing Stabilization Fund because it was so riddled with fraud.
This isn't just about justice, putting bad guys in jail, although that's hugely important. This is about saving these programs. In Minnesota, there's a great example. They had to shut down the Housing Stabilization Fund.
That dude jumped out of a fourth-story balcony.
Department of Health and Human Services because it was so riddled with fraud.
And he got away.
It couldn't be afforded anymore. This is money that's intended for veterans to protect them from homelessness was being so attacked by fraudsters that there was no way to even keep the program going. And then the program for children with developmental disabilities was supposed to cost $20 million. And over the course of the Biden administration, it went from $20 million a year to $400 million a year.
$400 million.
The only way to save these programs for the American people. So
and they passed all those budgets.
Citizens.
They didn't ask any questions.
That they're paying for is to
they're in on
stop
it.
the fraud. And this shouldn't be a partisan issue.
I'm telling you, man, a lot of these people are in on it. A lot of these politicians, they know what the hell they're doing. They passed the funding. They didn't even ask, okay, well, it was $20 million for a certain period of time, probably for years. And then all of a sudden, now they're asking for double and then double and then double year after year. And they're just simply not questioning, why is it all of a sudden $400 million when it should have been $20 million? Even adjusted for inflation, it'd be nowhere near that amount. All right. Nick Shirley, the Minnesota fraud empire is falling. Yesterday, 15 fraudsters were charged and $90 million was busted. The mainstream media tried to cover for the fraudsters. Governor Tim Walz called it white supremacy to expose it, and Ilhan Omar is completely silent. Independent journalism defeated an entire fraud network upheld by billions of dollars with support from corrupt politicians who allowed this fraud and the mainstream media who failed to report it. Major win for America and hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. This is just the beginning. Arrest them all. So this is 20 minutes. So I'm not going to play all 20 minutes of it. So just to get ahead of myself, I'll repost it. So if you want to watch the whole thing and you want to get to it the easy way, you can just click on the link below to my profile. You can also go to Nick Shirley. Also, if you want to take the long route to get there, he's also got a YouTube channel. So I imagine that this is going to be right here on YouTube as well. But we'll play like a minute or two of it, then we'll move on.
We're here in Minnesota, back with the legend David. Today's a big day because today here in Minnesota, over 10 people are being charged for fraud that they have committed here inside the state of Minnesota. And a few of these people are being charged with
wearing the Leering Center hoodies.
Daycare, child care fraud.
He's
Over
selling those, by the way.
$40 million in
I made a
autism
fortune.
fraud. And one of the main ladies in the video that me and David made, she has been caught with over $4 million. Her last year her daycare received $3.67 million, and now she has been criminally charged for child care fraud here inside the state of Minnesota. And this is some of the highest amount of fraud that's ever been charged inside of
went straight to that terrorist network in Somalia.
Ilhan Omar's district here in Minnesota. And on top of that, they're bringing
oh my God, they got a picture with her?
cases of fraud that has
Wait a minute, that was
never
AI.
been charged.
That had to be AI.
Medicare program.
She wouldn't put on the Leering Center hoodie?
Of Minnesota. This is a big deal. David, you're here with us. What does this say?
This is phenomenal to see the progression that things are happening after the release of our videos. And that woman who was criminally charged, by the way, she was caught at the airport with a one-way ticket to London. She was getting out of Dodge, and they stopped her.
I'm telling you,
and
man.
now she's been charged not only
Thousands
with
of
defeating
people
our
fled the
future
country.
fraud, but
We're
she's
not
the
going to catch
first
most of these people, I
person
bet.
charged with child care fraud. It's a big deal.
This is a big deal, and they're going to be doing these press conferences right now. We're going to be breaking it all down. We're going to be interviewing people like Dr. Oz and also A.G. Collins, who's actually the head of the Fraud Task Force. He's the Attorney General of the Fraud Task Force, so we're going to be interviewing him as well. And right now, because of the celebration that's taking place, the leers are leering the hard way. We're doing 25% off the entire site, so you can go to antifraudclub.com and use code LEERING, and you're going to get 25%.
Okay, well, there you go. You go visit the website and go buy your hoodie and all that good stuff. But yeah, like I said, I'm sure the majority, probably the vast majority of all these fraudsters have already long since fled the country as soon as they announced that there was going to be a formation of not only just the White House Fraud Task Force, but also the same fraud task force that they had formed in the DOJ. And I think that they're creating local or regional offices under the DOJ to combat fraud more effectively. And yeah, man, they're probably gone. Not to say they're not going to catch them. I'm sure they'll probably still have the ability to catch a lot of them. I don't know, man. Unless they end up in a non-extradition country, which I would imagine a lot of them probably will be. All right, so war correspondent breaking the Pelosi Act, which bans congressional stock trading, has just passed out of the committee 827. I'm sure it was directly along party lines. Of course it is. Even though there are some Democrats, who were they? I think AOC might have been among them. I mean, there were a handful of Democrats, if not quite a few, who were okay with this. Like they were like, yeah, we shouldn't be engaging in essentially insider trading. But I guess not in this committee. They decided not to.
We have an opportunity
because it's going to have Trump's
here
name on it
today to do something that the public has wanted us to do for decades, and that is to ban members of Congress from profiting on information that, frankly, only members of Congress have in the buying and selling of stock. 86% of Americans say that members of Congress should not be able to buy and sell shares of stock, individual stock, while they are members of this body. And they are absolutely correct. And the reason is, you can see it, there was just another ethics referral in the House last week. We've seen the former Speaker of the House make millions of dollars in profits. We've seen
hundreds
members of
millions.
both parties, I'm sad to say, be investigated for
Oh, but
their
that's just
stock
my
trades.
husband.
And the reason for all of this is that, quite frankly, members of this body are privy to information that the normal person just is not. Now, is that insider trading? It is not under the laws. Sometimes people say, well, we already have insider trading laws. We don't need a stock ban. Well, the information that members of Congress are privy to is technically not covered by the insider trading laws, but nobody really believes that the information that we get isn't valuable. It is quite valuable, which is why back during COVID, you saw members of Congress of both parties
$200 million.
engaged in a flurry of stock trading right after they were getting COVID briefings. Were members of the public getting those briefings? They were not. Were members of the public privy to the kind
whole
of information
essential
that was being
businesses will stay
given to
open.
members of Congress? No, they were not.
They knew it was going to be
and so
Walmart,
when you look at what members of
Amazon.
Congress are privy to, what they are able to trade on, the access that they have, it's just qualitatively different than your average Joe or Jane, which is why we ought to put into place common sense guardrails that say, if you want to be a member of Congress, you can put you want to save, great. You can buy mutual funds, you can buy broadly diversified investment vehicles. You should not be able to buy and trade individual stock shares in which, frankly, we have an interest in the work that we do. We have information that no other people get, no other members of the public have. This bill would finally redress that.
Well, and you know what? They need to ban lobbying while they're at it if they really care about the American people. I don't see that actually happening, though. But look, this is definitely a big step in the right direction. So that's good to hear, at least, that it passed the committee. So it just might find its way all the way through. And of course, I would imagine all the Democrats are going to unanimously vote against it, even though many of them have spoken out and said that they 100% agree that there should not be any stock trading by members of Congress. But of course, they're with it, especially with it being an election year, and they're up for re-election because everybody in the House is. So anyway, and let's roll on to some partisan drama from Scott Jennings. A shocking new poll shows that just 16% of men support the Democratic Party. I can't imagine why. I mean, they have people like James Tallarico in Texas, a vegan who wants to take your meat and thinks there are 6 genders. It's truly a mystery. Well, why only 6? I thought there were 72 or 76 or infinite numbers of genders. And before we check out the video, I'll just check Google to see if this number is accurate. So what about the percentage of men who approve of the job Democrats are doing? The latest national polling shows that 16% of men approve of the way Democrats in Congress are handling their job, according to Quinnipiac University poll. The specific record low metric is the exact source of the 16% figure circulating online. Job approval ratings specifically isolate current job performance, making them drastically lower than overall party alignment or voter intention. To understand this, it's helpful to look at how men view the party broadly versus how they rate their recent performance and yada yada. Well, I mean, like a lot of Democrats have just turned into full-on misandrous, just man-hating all up and down. They just can't stand them. Hence the whole manspreading, the whole mansplaining, and all this and that. All right, so let's just get to this. Again, this is going to be Scott Jennings. It's about 2.5 minutes.
Political polling is out today. Quinnipiac released some data on the favorability of American political parties.
Well,
Democrats,
Google agreed.
Well, folks, they're down to close family members and people who are paid to be there. Just 20% of Americans approve of Democrats, and that includes just 16% of men. Is there a human male in your life who is an enthusiastic Democrat right now? 16%.
Yikes.
Just shocking. Who are the male exemplars of the Democratic Party these days? Well, let's see. They have James Tallarico in Texas, Senate candidate, a vegan who says there are 6 genders, and that we have to solve the climate crisis by taking away the meat.
Literally everything.
They have Graham
Farting
Plattner
cows.
in Maine, the unhinged radical, self-described communist with a Nazi tattoo.
Yep.
He says he likes masturbating in public toilets. And today, we found out that Plattner has views on prostitution. He complained online about the closing of a loophole that allowed military contractors to save money on taxes by spending their time off, quote, these are his words, banging hookers in Thailand. Those are Plattner's words. Plattner, the candidate for Senate for the Democrats in Maine. Plattner also says today the U.S. Army is an awful organization, and he disparaged soldiers as, quote, fat, lazy trash who would rather not be in uniform. These are just a couple of examples of the kinds of men
could have been
who
taken out of
currently
context.
stand up for the Democratic Party in the United States of America. When Democrat males try to act normally, well, it comes out as contrived, over-the-top bullying from people like Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, of course.
Listen to this, cut number 6.
Of course, you have to be beta.
That's part of how we as House Democrats view this moment. Either MAGA extremists are going to break the country or we're going to break them. and our goal is to break them. We will defeat them.
Well, there you go. How's that political extremism for you?
And then we have to break their
No, but it's the right-wingers. They're the extremists.
Of the extremism that's being unleashed on the American people that's completely and totally
And he's the House leader for the Democrats, by the way.
These Democrats
top-ranking leader in the Democrats
break their way out of a wet paper sack. They're more likely to break a nail than break your spirit, I imagine.
All right. Well, there you go. That went by a little quick. Anyway, so let's roll on to the next. I got some other Democrat posts. So we'll see where this goes. Catherine Clark, which I've been sharing her pretty often this week because she's just been coming up often. I guess she's just posting a lot these days. House Republicans pulled our war powers resolution vote this week. Why? They knew it would pass. Instead of lowering costs, the GOP would rather kowtow to a wannabe dictator. Uh-oh.
The fastest thing we can do to lower costs for Americans right now is end this war and get to a resolution of it, open the Strait of Hormuz, and bring those gas prices down. But, I talked to a mom in Phoenix,
in other words, they're pro-Iran, anti-America.
She makes $100,000 a year. She said that should be enough. But when her husband lost the job, between her child care payment, her mortgage, her student loans, her husband is now selling plasma.
And
in order to
living in a deep blue district,
bills.
right?
And we're actually seeing a lot of these
overseen by local Democrats, right?
Up
of course.
Because this is how people
but it's all
are
Trump's
getting
fault,
by. So we have to make sure that we are fighting for them. And when we have what happened last night, where they pulled down the War Powers resolution at the last minute because they were going to lose it, because there's tremendous
maybe they were just fucking with you
on the Republicans.
They're like, can you get it? Can you get it? No, didn't get it. Sorry.
This war, and just seeing people at home who can't afford that increase to fill up their tank, to get to work, to drive their kids to school, to do the basics. So all of this, we just have to remain laser focused.
It's funny, all of a sudden they care about gas. Why aren't they saying, just drive an EV? Just get an EV, bro. Why aren't they pushing that messaging?
Not only ignoring them, but almost showing contempt for them.
Isn't it hilarious? They go from climate change alarmism to we care about gas. We must have cheap gas so everybody can just use all the gas we could possibly use. Because, I don't know. That's the Democrats today for you. All right, Pramila J. Powell. Trump's entire political career is built on fear, on racism, on making people of color the enemy. And now that he's in power, he's doing everything he can to silence the working people and communities of color who would rather vote him out. We see it, and together we can stop it. Here's your Democrat Party today.
That Trump's DOJ is trying to stop hate? Give me a break. Trump ran his campaigns and these administrations
on listen for the examples she's going to give us.
And racism against communities of color and promoting hate. Enacted Muslim
Still no
bans,
examples.
Kidnapped and disappeared immigrants of all immigration statuses, including U.S. citizens.
One name. Give us a name.
Forced universities to roll back their diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. Stripped
yeah,
voting
that's
rights
illegal.
from black and brown
DEI.
voters, disenfranchising women and rural voters with the SAVE
Women
Act
have more
that he
rights
wants
than
to
men
pass.
these days.
It's all a shameless plan
It's true.
to return America to single-party control by a Republican Party who, unable to win on any sort of policy
here comes the
merits,
cheating.
turns to an old racist
Oh,
playbook
racism, of
that
course.
restricts the
Can't forget the
power
racism
of
part.
black, brown, and working-class voters
Gotta make
and
everything a
goes
race
after
issue.
any political foes just to hold on to power. You want to argue?
All right. Well, there you go. Pramila J. Powell doing what Pramila J. Powell does. Rep. Melanie Stansbury, why are all the women resigning and getting fired and not the men? Breaking news, Tulsi Gabbard is resigning as Director of National Intelligence. Of course, that's what the Democrats are going to say. It's all the women that are getting fired. Why aren't all the men getting fired? Because she's a misandrist. That's probably why. All right, so Senator Mazie Hirono, the American people are being gaslit from an extreme SCOTUS in a regime hell-bent on undermining our democracy. Republicans want to trick the American people into thinking our voting rights are not at risk. And as Mr. Cox clearly lays out, that is obviously not the case.
Quite frankly, we're being gaslit. We have
Woo,
a Supreme
gaslight.
Court, we have allies
by the Democrats.
of the Supreme Court and allies of the Calais case saying discrimination is over.
Darn tootin'.
Obviously not true.
Can you put this current moment into historical context for us? For instance, why is this moment reminiscent of when the last Congressman, John Lewis, who many of us consider a friend and hero, led over 600 peaceful protesters across the Edmund-Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama.
Thank you, Senator Hirono, for that question. I think it's reminiscent
they desperately want to bring back the
reflects
1960s,
the fact
civil
that
unrest.
The Voting Rights Act was not given to us. It was not bestowed on us. It really came from the people. And the joke I'm sort of making is that Justice O'Connor used to say there were more lawyers in D.C. than people. I think we sometimes feel that way in D.C. We're on the Hill. Lawyers are at the center of the universe, and that's just not true. If we're going to climb out of this destruction of the Voting Rights Act, the penultimate destruction of our democracy, it's going to require
How dare we
the
ensure
people.
that Americans vote?
And quite frankly, we're being gaslit. We have a Supreme Court, we have allies of the Supreme Court and allies of the Calais case saying discrimination is over.
I don't like you. That means you're an extremist.
We have folks on the ground showing and discussing with us that law enforcement are at the polling places. We have folks not
police
only
officers are allowed to vote too,
but being discriminated against right now. And I have to say that to not to ignore the fact that the people are demanding that Congress respond, that Congress restore the effects test that has been gutted and taken out by Calais would be a mistake, because folks understand and know what is happening outside in the real world. And they know, particularly black voters know, that they aren't going to return to the 1800s and what we all experienced, or our ancestors experienced, that led us to the Voting Rights Act in the first place.
Yeah, Democrats definitely don't want Black America to return to the political party that they were members of in the 1800s. Remember, the political party that actually freed their ancestors, the Republican Party. No, they don't want that to be returned to reality. The Democrat Party. Mark Anderson, AI turns water brown. You might disagree. You might even have some evidence to the contrary, but you have to ask yourself, is this really worth losing my job over? AI turns water brown. I don't know. Like, they keep saying there's an AI bubble that's supposedly in the process of bursting right now. Not sure if that's really going to play out, or if it's just going to be what they call a correction or a severe correction, or whatever terminology they choose to use. So this is from AOC. This is what drinking water in Georgia looks like after Meta began data center construction in the community.
I have a jar right here.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
what
the
water looks like
current
in a river.
drinking water in Morgan County, Georgia.
Can you show us a picture on one of your big boards?
The data center was
Like just,
constructed. The Meta
turning
data
the
center
faucet
was
from the sink?
constructed. The only difference between the clean water and this was that data center
Looks like apple cider
I have
vinegar
another
to me.
as well. So this wasn't just one
Well, there's some
well.
separation there.
These wasn't just one family's situation. This is what the drinking water now looks like.
So people were turning on their faucet and that was coming out. Like all of that heavy sediment was coming right out of their faucet. Okay. All
Next
right.
to that
That's
data
what she's
center.
saying, I guess.
And I think both of us can agree that neither one of these things are drinkable. These families now have to ship, in a rural area, have to ship water to their house in order to cook and bathe themselves. Now, I'm curious if the EPA plans any investigations on how data centers are affecting water quality and availability. I understand what you said about the rule, but
thought
are
they
there
were
gonna be
closed
any open
systems, weren't they?
investigations on this issue?
So as soon as I get back to the office, I will be looking into exactly what you've just talked about, because
All right.
anywhere.
Well, tell us what town so we can look it up.
Whatever
Where's
type
this
of
happening?
construction it is
In
a
Georgia.
priority to ensure that water quality standards established by EPA are being met. And so we'll be looking into that certainly.
Thank you. I sincerely appreciate that because I think this is of utmost importance, and we're seeing this happening across the country. I'd also
I have
like
a feeling
to
she's
ask
leaving
about
out
the
some information here.
administration's push to build more data centers by fast-tracking construction. Because the administration's been issuing executive orders to fast-track data center construction when we know that water quality is encountering major issues. Are there any mandates for data centers to do water quality testing prior to construction?
Of like coming from a public water supply, drinking water supply sampling?
Wells, yeah.
I'm not aware of anything like that. However, it doesn't mean I'm just not aware of it.
Well, they don't want to pump dirty water into AI centers.
You know, I think it's important that.
How exactly is this water getting dirty anyway?
Official, we have to make sure we're doing these investigations. And then
Computers
us,
don't produce mud.
On a congressional level, I'd like to note that I think it's of utmost importance that we also launch congressional investigations into this matter as well, so that we can partner with the EPA and ensure that the drinking water for this country continues to be safe and accessible for the American people. So thank you, Administrator.
Well, yeah, they got to dump billions and billions of dollars into the EPA. The EPA, they just got to forever spend money and spend and spend. Do that water quality testing and whatnot. All right, so in case you're wondering where it is just outside of Atlanta. I mean, not that far outside of Atlanta in Georgia. The Stanton Springs Data Center, what they call a massive meta AI data center, and locals are reporting sediment and dirty water finding its way into their well water supply. So maybe that's happening, and maybe they should be looking into that. I don't know, maybe just part of the construction process, I guess. And I highly doubt that it's probably, up and fully running and fully functional right now. They're probably still constructing it. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. From Red Wave Press. Wow, California Governor Gavin Newsom is getting slammed for falsely accusing Chevron of price gouging. The company is fighting back with signs at its Golden State gas stations that read, Sacramento policies did this. Now you pay more. California politicians are choosing foreign oil and fuels over local jobs and lower costs. Fox News' Sandra Smith, why doesn't Newsom just take it directly to court? If that's the case, that is an illegal activity. Yeah, that's actually that's a fairly good point. Why not take it to court if they're price gouging?
Warning residents to avoid Chevron gas stations over Memorial Day weekend, accusing that company of price gouging. William Lajeunesse live from Los Angeles. So, William, why doesn't he just
sounds like
take
somebody
it
might be getting
directly
sued
to court if that's the case? That's an illegal activity.
Well, he actually did, and he never got anywhere. His own commission found out there was no price gouging. But I want to tell you, Chevron is not backing down from Governor Newsom, actually telling consumers right here at the pump, look at this, Sacramento policies did this to the price of gas. Now you pay more. California politicians are choosing foreign oil and fuel over local jobs and lower costs. So you guys, this fight goes back
they do. California imports their oil.
Proposed a windfall profits tax because of big oil.
It's all about climate change.
Price gouging, as I said, his own commission never proved that. 2 years later, Chevron moved out of California to Texas, citing Newsom's hostile business climate.
Another major company fleeing California.
This, quoting, Californians, if you're hitting the road this holiday weekend, be sure to avoid Chevron. Unbranded gas comes from the same refineries, tanks, and pipelines. Don't let them rip you off even more by overpaying for the brand name. He does not, however, mention ExxonMobil, Shell, or others, nor does he say California has the highest gas tax in the country, around 90 cents a gallon. Clean air regulations raise prices even more. So does importing 64% of its oil from overseas at another 15 cents a gallon for the state's special blend. And closing refineries because of Democrats here oppose drilling also pushes up prices.
Yeah,
now, to
there you go.
his argument,
but today they care so much about gas and gas prices.
Of 4 gas stations in 2 of the state's 58 counties. 2 Chevrons had higher prices than nearby Independents. Evidence, Newsom says, that unbranded gas costs up to 80 cents less per gallon. Well, for context, the state has 13,000 stations. Just 300 are owned by Chevron corporate. Consumers we talked to avoided the blame game.
I don't know about picking sides here. Just whatever is necessary to lower these prices.
The traffic, the people, this is where the money's at.
So driving in this morning, you guys, I went by 7 stations, 76, Shell, Exxon, and 2 independents. Prices ranged by about 80 cents, but it wasn't political. It definitely seemed geographic or competitive. Back to you.
Well, yeah, that's usually how it plays out. Usually it's geographical. If you get on Gas Buddy, there's some areas where gas is a little bit cheaper than other places. It's probably going to be more expensive around interstate highways. It's going to be less expensive, maybe in like a neighborhoods or something, maybe. Anyway, moving on to James Woods. This lady hits the nail on the head. Many homeless people are suffering from severe mental illness. Her daughter is a diagnosed schizophrenic, but self-medicate with street drugs. These people need mental hospitals where real treatment is possible.
Karen Bass is not doing anything. She's been bullshitting us. Haven't had a good mayor in a long time. But when you said the mental
you know which party to vote for.
Problem in drugs, because the people don't want to be down there. My daughter is schizophrenia and she's on crystal meth. So that hit home. So if you're going to do that, you got my vote. And as you see, Like, it ain't the barbecue and the ice cream, it's if you're gonna really do it. And I appreciate that. Because Karen Bass is not doing absolutely nothing. Nothing. So, yeah, because my daughter needs the help. Yeah, they put her in jail.
Is he one of the guys running for mayor?
No medicine, and we need more than that. And she's not homeless. She have a mother, but she's downtown right now, walking around, and people probably think she don't have a mother who loves her. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's sad. The countless thousands of other people sharing the same story. Definitely. Red State. Black Democrats declare war on Jim Crow Debbie Wasserman Schultz after she reveals 2026 plans. And it looks like her district might be getting the axe. Well, and I guess that's not really the right way to put it. Well, she may be getting replaced by a Republican because her district was one of the districts that was flipped with the congressional redistricting here in Florida. Black Democrats declare war on Jim Crow Debbie Wasserman Schultz after she reveals 2026 plans. All right. So somewhere Ron DeSantis has got to be sitting back, booted, feet propped on his desk, laughing and smoking a cigar at what has been playing out in Florida's 20th congressional district. As Red State readers will recall, at the governor's urging, the Sunshine State redrew its congressional map in late April, just as the Supreme Court ruling, Louisiana versus Calais, was being handed down. Republicans hold 20 of Florida's 28 congressional seats. The new map, if it survives the current court challenges, could potentially net them another 4 seats in the upcoming midterm elections. One of the districts impacted was District 25, which longtime Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz currently represents. That district will be far more GOP-friendly under the new map, so Wasserman Schultz had a decision to make. On Friday, she announced it, and it has infuriated Black Democrats in the state, probably because she wants to hijack one of their districts. Speculation has been swirling for weeks that Wasserman Schultz would switch districts and run for the open seat in District 20, the one formerly held by disgraced now former Rep. Sheila Sherfilis McCormick. Oh yeah, she was the one that was like embezzling money or what have you. But that district is one of the those minority ones, and several Black Democrats who already declared their intentions to run for it openly warned the former Democrat National Committee chairwoman off of it. She didn't listen, and on Friday, she made it official that she intends to run in District 20, complete with a framed poster of former President Barack Obama in the background, of course. Oh my God, these people are so freaking ridiculous. They're ridiculous, they're panderers, they're racist. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Today, I'm announcing my candidacy for Florida's 20th Congressional District. Okay, so it's official. She made the post. Actually, let's just take a look at it, and let's just read the whole thing. I'll continue to use my seniority in Washington to make Broward a safer, less expensive place to live, raise a family, and retire, even though I'm sure she probably doesn't live there. We cannot let Trump and DeSantis take away Broward County's power. So I guess we'll give it a watch. Why not? It's Friday.
I've fought for the people of Broward County my whole adult life. You've always been able to count on me to deliver results for our community.
Debbie knows how to deliver results.
If you know Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you know that Debbie does not back down from a fight. She is a person that is for all people.
All these videos are probably like 3 years old.
To stand up against all forms of hate and make sure we're best represented in Congress.
And I waged these battles when our values were on the line.
Hate.
All while raising a family, beating cancer, and answering President Obama's call to lead our party.
Debbie has for many years been a strong ally of the LGBTQ community and the Hispanic communities.
Debbie has walked the walk.
She's able to get things done, and in a country where unity has become a real problem and that no one does that, she's a rare person.
Today, I'm announcing my candidacy for re-election in Congressional District 20 because we cannot let Trump destroy Broward County's power.
Having somebody with that experience right now in this turbulent times is so important.
Republicans couldn't care less about lowering your health care, gas, or grocery bills. But I'll use all my seniority and clout in Washington to continue to make our lives more affordable and make Broward a safer, less expensive place to live,
I'm more
raise a
establishment
family,
than anybody
and
who's
retire.
running against me.
Some people do a lot of talking. I work hard to deliver results. We can do this together.
Doesn't matter what the issue is, Debbie Wasserman Schultz delivers.
Her authenticity
her connection to the community.
She stands up for our country. She tells it like it is.
We need strength. We need experience, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz is that person.
She has humanity, she has experience, she has honor, and she has vision.
I'm telling you, folks, get her elected. We do not want to lose Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Community activist, not a doctor. He's a community activist. All right, so there you go. So that was her promotional video that she's running for a district that is majority minority. All right, so where's the article? Let me get back to this. The announcement did not go over well with some of the candidates who were already in the race, including self-described organizer and woke-tivist Elijah Manley, who point-blank accused her of wanting to steal a seat that he felt should remain in the hands of a black Democrat. Well, what about in the hands of somebody who actually lives in that district? I mean, maybe she lives in that district, but if she does, then why the hell was she representing a district that she's not living in? I mean, I don't think that that's strictly the law, that you have to be living in the district. I just think that would probably be somebody that you should be voting for, somebody who actually lives in your community. He wrote the following statement on X. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is carpet bagging to Florida 20, a black opportunity district, instead of running in her own. DWS is everything that's wrong with the Democratic establishment. Yeah, which she certainly is. She basically admitted to it. From insider trading to payday lenders. I look forward to retiring her from public office permanently. This ought to be very interesting. Later, he broke out the Jim Crow references in a true chickens come home to roost moment for Wasserman Schultz and the race-obsessed Democrat Party. Elijah Manley says Debbie Wasserman Schultz is no different than those Jim Crow Republicans across the South that are wiping out African-American opportunity districts. Look, dude, all you got to do is crack open a history book. Do a simple Google search. Just type in Jim Crow and ask which party that the Jim Crow era was in full control of. It was the Democrats. It wasn't the Republicans. Idiot. But she definitely won't succeed. The Florida Black Legislative Caucus was also not amused. Florida Legislative Black Caucus joins the criticism of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Her decision to pursue re-election in this historically black district, despite explicit requests from the black community to seek candidacy in a neighboring district, is disheartening. So it sounds like they're awfully worried that she might end up winning. Well, dude, just get the message out. Don't vote for her. It's just that simple. I mean, she's not like a completely strong-arming or anything. Just simply vote for the persons who were already running. Before DWS jumped into Florida 20, the Broward County Democratic Black Caucus urged her not to. The architecture of black political representation across the South runs through how this primary breaks, and we will not be the precedent that opens that door for more black seats to be. And, it just goes to show they don't care, man. These Democrats don't care. They're power hungry. They honestly don't care. Because if she cared, she would not be running in a majority black district. They're all about just clinching onto power and holding on to it for dear life. Wasserman Schultz's current district is also majority minority, but with more Hispanic voters than black voters. Okay, well, I mean, kind of stand correct there. The new CD20's majority minority, once it goes into effect, will consist of more black voters than Hispanic voters. But while no longer a majority black seat, CD20 under the new cartography remains a majority minority seat. About 42% of the voting age population is black, more than 23% is Hispanic, and almost 4% Asian, while 30% of voting age residents are white. The icing on top of all of this is that Phyllis McCormick is running again too for the District 20 seat. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's under indictment for a whole bunch of crimes, stealing a lot of money. Here's what she had to say 2 weeks ago when asked about the possibility of Wasserman Schultz running in District 20 and if she'd support her. A potential Wasserman Schultz bid in District 20 could end years of black congressional representation in the district, an idea Phyllis McCormick said she opposes. Absolutely not, Phyllis McCormick said when asked whether she would support Wasserman Schultz running in the district. This is not the moment for forum shopping. This is not the moment to say this is easier. This is not. What matters in this moment is to make sure all the strides we have made to make sure black representation is actually present matters. In a sane world, people would reject arguments that certain districts should be reserved for any person based on race, sex, religion, etc. But Democrats built this insanity. Yeah, they did. And now they're tearing themselves apart over it. Bless their hearts. You love to see it. You truly do. Anyway, so that'll be linked below. And we'll move on to the Daily Signal. Victor Davis Hanson. Thomas Massey blew it. Thomas Massie went from conservative fighter to legacy media favorite after repeatedly breaking with Donald Trump and siding against key Republican priorities. Hansen argues Massie crossed the Rubicon by voting against the Save America Act and trying to become a folk hero to CNN, MSNBC, and the political left. From the Epstein Files debate to using an old Trump endorsement in campaign ads, Hansen breaks down why many America First voters in one of the reddest districts in the country finally turned on Massie. And I will link that also. That's going to be the full episode, and this is just a 4-minute cut.
I think he got infected with MS and CNN. So if you go on there and these hard left communist socialist activists flatter you, then you absorb that, not just the ideology, but the methodology. So he thought he was some kind of folk hero. You should look at the ratings and see that MS and CNN together are less than Fox. But
I just in that vein, I think Gowrine won by 9 points or something like that. It was a huge win.
Yeah, he did. And Scott Jennings, whom I really respect, he's a really great commentator. He takes on people at CNN. He summed it up. I can add something to it, but he did a wonderful job. He pointed out a couple of things, that the district that Massie represented in Kentucky is probably the reddest district in the United States. So those people wanted a strong, strong conservative. They didn't object as long as he was libertarian, if he was going to be a libertarian strong conservative. And by that I mean he came to prominence during the COVID when he said there was overreach. They even gave him some slack when he was opposing the big spending by both parties. But what they couldn't countenance was this, that when you can have the luxury of a Susan Collins in the Senate or a Rand Paul that don't vote 95%, they're mavericks. And sometimes they work, Lisa Murkowski. That's a indulgence when you have 5 seats in the Senate margin. You can have 3 defections. Okay, but when you're close in the House, every little seat, and they only got 2-seat margin, you can't afford that. So when he started, after he became a folk hero on the right, he decided that he was going to become famous on the Epstein Files. And the problem with that was he didn't say a word really when Biden was president. And the vast majority of people who appear, whether it's Larry Summers or Reid Hoffman or all these people, they're on the left. So it didn't condemn Donald Trump. It didn't condemn a bunch of conservatives. And that's what he was trying to partner with AOC and others and saying, oh, there's going to be Republicans, and it was a farce. So that blew up on him, and he kept trying to get back onto the mainstream and get attention, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Bobbitt and Tucker, all those people loved him. That didn't work. And then so he voted. The big defections came when he voted against the big, beautiful bill. He voted against the closing the borders, and he voted against the SAVE Act, voter ID. And once he did that, he crossed the Rubicon. The left made him into a brave maverick. But he was always an ambiguous, problematic person, as he didn't have a lot of principles. He had convenient principles, because as you pointed out, to save his skin, he put out a false ad that years ago Trump had endorsed him when he won 80% against no opposition, essentially. So he reran that to fool people and think that Trump had flipped. Number 2, he said in his defeat that he couldn't find his opponent because he's in Tel Aviv. Does anybody really believe he lost because of the Jews? He opposed the war, and he always votes against Israel. But that's not why he lost. He lost because he deliberately, on key votes that had nothing to do with Israel, turned on Donald Trump from a red district. It would be the analogous of, say, Nancy Pelosi's district. It's the bluest in the U.S., San Francisco. And then she started to vote with Republicans. That would be the end of her. And
yeah, it would be. He's 100% right. I mean, that's a good comparison, too. AAG Harmeet Dillon, no woman in America should be forced to share a prison cell with a male. Civil rights at the DOJ, Civil Rights Division, and the Justice Department has launched investigations into prison systems across the country to ensure that all women are treated fairly.
Sometimes women are forced to share cells with trans-identifying men with predictable results. And so we think this is unconstitutional and barbaric. And we also have federal statutes, including something called CRIPA. And so we are opening investigations into multiple prison systems regarding this. California, Maine, Washington State, Gig Harbor is the most recent one we announced earlier this week. We have an ongoing large investigation into unconstitutional conditions in Colorado's prison system after I heard about Tina Peters' case and some of the conditions she was under, and I learned that Colorado is doing the same thing. And so, we're working with women's prison rights groups to help us identify where this is happening. Sometimes women are forced to share cells with trans-identifying men with predictable results.
All right, so pretty wild that that's happening, and I would imagine it's probably exclusively in blue states. From Red State Game Changer, no more honor system. Green card applicants must apply from their home country. This is another one from Red State. It has no doubt been said by many people since President Trump returned to the White House in January of 2025 that the near irreparable damage done by to the United States regarding immigration by Joe Biden and his feckless administration will take years, if not decades, to fix. President Trump and his administration have done amazing work on immigration in the last 15 months, and they continue to find new ways to make immigration law work better for the American people. And let's see, Homeland Security, an alien who is in the U.S. temporarily and wants a green card must return to their home country to apply. This policy allows our immigration system to function as the law intended, instead of incentivizing loopholes. The era of abusing our nation's immigration system is over. On Friday, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, announced that any non-citizens who have applied for a green card or lawful permanent resident status must return to their home country, even if they have spouses or children who are citizens. They will be required to wait for the processing of their application through consular processing, which goes through the U.S. State Department. Any granting of adjustment of status would only take place in extraordinary circumstances and on a case-by-case basis. So that is the gist of what ended up happening, and I think that is a very good idea. That's the way it always should have been, and it sounds like that's exactly the way the law is set up for. And from Florida's Voice, sister of a sanctioned Cuban military executive was arrested in Florida after her green card was revoked by the State Department over alleged ties to Cuba's ruling network. And Secretary Rubio says Morera was managing real estate assets and living in Florida while also aiding Havana's communist regime until I terminated her permanent resident status. And I'll just link this. I won't get into all the details with that. I mean, we got the point that, she's has close ties to, the Cuban elites and the regime in Cuba, and, her green card was revoked. So there you have it. And Brianna Morello says HSI and the U.S. Coast Guard have seized $6.4 million in narcotics from a crude oil tanker in the port of Los Angeles. On May 21st, a Coast Guard narcotics detection canine alerted the boarding team to suspected contraband, and the team positively identified 500 pounds of cocaine, worth approximately $6.4 million. HSI arrested one individual, and two others were taken into custody. And there's the image with the canine. A big bust, big find. So they're stacking drugs up in oil tankers now and sending them off to L.A. And from FBI Director Kash Patel, this FBI and the Justice Department just received a guilty plea in a multi-state investigation involving the exploitation of children. Last spring, our local partners in Toledo, Ohio, arrested a subject, Brett Tooman, after he allegedly traveled to the area to abuse a seven-year-old girl. That investigation ultimately led to multiple other individuals, including one subject, Lincoln Erickson, who was working as a medical resident at a Michigan hospital. Erickson had been linked to the same case, receiving AI-generated child pee and discussing traveling to sexually abused children. This FBI arrested Mr. Erickson in December. This week, Mr. Erickson pled guilty to those charges. More lives saved thanks to FBI investigators and partners' relentless work protecting kids. And I will have that linked also. That is on clickondetroit.com. And let's see, Brandon Carr, Disney has filed a petition with the FCC asking the agency to declare that the television program The View is exempt from the statutory equal opportunities requirements that would otherwise apply to broadcast shows. Disney argues, here, let me open this up. So Disney argues that The View qualifies as bona fide news under the law, comparing itself to Meet the Press or Face the Nation. Therefore, Disney argues it can have one partisan candidate for office on The View while denying equal opportunities to all others. The FCC is now seeking public comment on Disney's request to be labeled as bona fide news. Is The View a bona fide news interview program? Under FCC case law, TV shows do not qualify as bona fide news if their decisions are based on partisan purposes, such as an intention to advance or harm an individual's candidacy. As the public notice observes, Congress originally passed the Equal Opportunities Law to prevent media gatekeepers from deciding the outcome of elections. The law, even when it applies, does not prohibit anyone from having any candidate appear on any show. Rather, Congress intended it to empower voters with more information and encourage more speech. The FCC welcomes your views, and I will absolutely have that linked if you want to share your views on that matter. And this is the public notice document with regard to that with The View and Disney, and I will repost that if you want to read all those details. And we're going to rock and roll on down to another. Undersecretary of War, Michael Duffy, official account of the Undersecretary of War for Acquisition and Sustainment. And Michael Duffy says the arsenal of freedom is expanding. And he shared this post from Lockheed Martin. Breaking ground at our new munitions production center, Building 47. We're adding 87,000 square feet to expand THAAD interceptor production, part of our $9 billion investment to meet growing munitions demand, strengthen America's industrial base, and support the U.S. and our allies. The military-industrial complex.
Building 47 is part of our broader $8 to $9 billion investment plan through 2030 to expand production of advanced munitions and manufacturing across the company and the country. And we've already spent about $1.25 billion of that money in advance of all of our contracts. We know it's going to be good, and we know it's going to happen.
This partnership is critical to surging our munitions capacity, and Lockheed Martin has leaned in aggressively. Today is a testament to that partnership and that progress.
Well, alrighty then. There you go. Building more munitions, more investment, your tax dollars at work, building extremely expensive missiles with Lockheed Martin. And this is from Red Pill Bot. This is wild. So international arms transfers by the U.S. from the year 1950 to the year 2017. The U.S. is the #1 maker and exporter of weapons in the world. Empires that thrive on war will always create war. And this is an animation of the United States, the international arms trade. Those are all arms, munitions, arms transfers exported by the U.S. from 1950 to 2017, just funneling them all over the place. Well, of course, there's like Japan and South Korea. You got European countries, Middle Eastern countries, certain countries in South America too. And this actually goes on for a while. So they've got where's the year? Yeah, here it is over on the left, 1964, 1965. So let me go ahead and speed it up. So it gets really heavy by the 70s and ramping it up to the early 80s. Pretty much the same thing. Oh, don't forget about Australia. Australia's getting a lot of arms. And this is early 90s. And the late 90s, still just pouring all over the place. 2005, 2006. Like crazy, man. Lots and lots. And in the mid-2010s, looks like Canada's getting a lot more than they were early on. So there you go. That's a lot, man. And I'll repost that if you want to watch the entire thing, since I was skipping around. But I think we got the idea. It's a large amount of transfer of weapons to other countries in the world from the U.S. And from Clown World, they quietly changed real ice cream into frozen dairy dessert, and most people never even noticed. I certainly noticed when they have it, frozen. They don't call it ice cream; they call it frozen dessert. Or I don't even think they even put the word dairy in it. So yeah, there's a bunch of ice creams, especially with ice cream sandwiches and like ice cream cones and those types of treats. They have essentially gotten rid of the ice cream, and this is how they process it today. And you might think twice before you buy this stuff from now on.
They're swapping fake ice cream and real ice cream. This disturbing clip exposed a sneaky tactic Breyers is using to push shoppers into counterfeit cream.
Frozen dairy dessert, ice cream. Come on,
there you go.
Breyers didn't just replace the cream. They added something so much worse. Every frozen dairy dessert starts as antibiotic-laced runoff, pumped full of cheap corn syrup, then ripped through pressure tanks with the same gum used in fracking fluid. And that's nothing. That goop is injected with trans fat, dyed yellow with annatto, and inflated with compressed air until it physically cannot melt. Multiple flavors scanned hidden trans fats linked to heart disease. Comment exposure to scan safer brand.
They're swapping fake ice.
I guess I would have to try that as an experiment. Leave it out on the counter and see if it actually melts. I mean, according to them, it won't. All right, so Bethany Stevens to wrap up the show. From the space station to deep space, it's been a busy week at NASA, swearing in the NASA Deputy Administrator. And let me get his name. I forgot his name. Matt Anderson, that's right. And also... Psyche captures stunning new Mars images, and also successful delivery to the ISS. And NASA moon base update is coming next week. Here's your NASA Minute.
From the space station to the red planet, NASA's missions continue moving forward. Here's what's new this week in your NASA Minute. On Thursday, NASA officially welcomed Matt Anderson as the agency's 16th Deputy Administrator, following his confirmation by the U.S. Senate earlier in the week. A retired U.S. Air Force colonel with decades of experience in space operations and national security, Anderson will help lead NASA's missions in exploration, science, and aeronautics as the agency pushes toward the moon, Mars, and beyond. Welcome to NASA, Matt. This week, NASA's Psyche spacecraft flew past Mars using the planet's gravity to slingshot itself deeper into the solar system on its journey to study the asteroid Psyche. Stunning new images of the red planet were captured, including views of craters, the planet's horizon, and its south polar ice cap. A SpaceX Dragon spacecraft successfully arrived at the International Space Station this week, carrying over 6,000 pounds of supplies and scientific research for the Expedition 74 crew. Among the experiments delivered were studies focused on astronaut health, space weather, and Earth observation, continuing more than 25 years of scientific research aboard the orbiting laboratory. Coming up next week, NASA will provide a moon base update. Be sure to tune in to hear more about our progress in establishing humanity's first lunar outpost. Whether in orbit, on the way to an asteroid, or preparing for the moon, NASA's mission of exploration and discovery continues every day. We'll see you next time on the NASA Minute.
All right, well, that one was shorter than usual. But, there's some weeks where it's real busy in NASA and other weeks that it's not so busy. But that will do it for this episode. So if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like and subscribe to the channel. And I will be back on Monday. Yes, on Monday, even though it's Memorial Day. I will be here doing the swamp. And I post daily on X, which is where you can peek at the content for the next episode. And don't forget the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow around 8, 9, maybe 10 o'clock, whenever I get around to it. But it will be in the morning. And thank you very much for watching. And God bless the troops. And God bless America. And have a very happy Labor Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend, my bad.